Have you ever wondered how much effort, time, and money can be wasted because of a single miscalculation? Mistakes happen to everyone, but in engineering, the cost can be very high. One wrong calculation, one wrong decision can jeopardize months and years of hard work. Today we will talk about such engineering miscalculations and their consequences. 1. Liziba Station in the Chinese city of Chongqing. One of the monorail lines runs right through a 19-story apartment building. Moreover, its residents, practically without leaving it, can go about their business by train. The good thing is that the monorail carving station is located right in the apartment building and occupies the 7th and 8th floors. The closest walls of the apartments are in direct contact with the tunnel through which the train runs, and the distance to the side and lower windows does not reach even a meter. The decision to run the monorail line right through the building was the result of a compromise, as it was this option that allowed the building not to be demolished. It seems impossible to live in such a building because the train in such close proximity to the apartments must create a catastrophically high level of noise and vibration. However, they are suppressed by special equipment. Still, the residents of the house had to put up with the increased noise and vibration level. 2. A mistake 100 times saved millions. It's the one that changed the world. Let's start with a very small mistake that saved millions of lives. In 1956, American engineer Wilson Greatbeige was working on the creation of a heart rhythm recorder, a device for recording the sound of the human heart. During the work, the engineer accidentally took the wrong resistor from the box. He needed a 10-ohm resistor, but he inserted a 1 megohm resistor into the circuit 100 times more. But just so you understand, this is what they look like. The colored stripes there determine the rating, and if you don't look closely, it's easy to confuse the two. So, when they say that Beige connected the wrong resistor in the circuit, it did not refuse to work, but began to emit periodic pulses lasting 1.8 milliseconds at intervals of 1 second, and practically without consuming the battery. At this point, the engineer realized that this was the way to stimulate the heart, and he radically changed the direction of research. For 2 years, Greatbeige improved his invention, quit his main job, and made a batch of 50 devices in his garage by hand. After experiments on animals, he began to install them in people and eventually received a patent for the world's first implantable pacemaker. 3. The following story is not only about some technical and engineering miscalculations, but also about human greed and bad faith. Here, look, this is the Walkie-Talkie skyscraper in London. It was named so because it looks like a walkie-talkie, which in English is called walkie-talkie. The skyscraper was built in 2014. Under the force of discontent of the citizens, probably because the tower is nearby, many other historical buildings, and somehow separately from other skyscrapers of the city, it stands out strongly. So, right after the building was built, there were even more complaints about the building, because it started setting fire to the cars parked nearby. It turned out that the building began to focus the sun's rays in one place, and we can say that it turned out to be a giant burning machine. On the street, where the light was directed, the temperature was recorded up to 70 to 90 degrees Celsius, 160 to 194 degrees Fahrenheit, and in some places it reached 117 degrees, 242 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm sure if those who built the building would not have skipped physics lessons on geometric optics, and specifically on concave mirrors, this whole story would not have happened. On sunny days, those reflected rays damaged everything in their path: the Jaguar parked nearby, the plastic parts of the van, the tiles on the buildings. The heat was making it fall off. Personal items melted on windowsills, and once even the carpet at the entrance to the barbershop caught fire. In general, there was a lot of noise. A local newspaper reporter even fried eggs on a frying pan in the sunshine. As a result, parking on the street was banned, and the developer had to pay compensation to the victims and install a sunshade on the facade. The most interesting thing is that in the original plan, such devices at the building were provided, but at some point decided to cut the budget and remove them from the project. So much for saving money. Further proof that the miser pays twice. Well, it's quite instructive. 4. Next we have an unusual airport in the south of New Zealand. It is located in a small town called Gisborne and has a domestic airport through which about 150,000 passengers fly annually. It would be an ordinary, unremarkable place if it were not for the railroad running right in the middle of the runway. The railroad tracks also operate and connect Gisborne itself and the town of Palmerston. The standard for airport management organizations, landing planes, has long been a real headache, as the trains have their own timetables to adjust to. So how did this come about? The railroad was once part of an ambitious project to build a second main rail line running across the island. But the project was never fully realized. Of the locals, too, no one can explain what the rationale was for building an airport right in the middle of the tracks. But, despite all the absurdity, the airport management, as well as the employees of the railroad, have to reckon with this grand engineering mistake. 5. An unaccounted factor can destroy a costly project that has been years in the making. The Mars Climate Orbiter was part of an ambitious project to study the Martian climate. NASA agencies and the Lockheed Martin Weapons Company worked together on the project, and the development cost was $125 million. December 11, 1998 was the launch of the orbiter, and 9 months later, on September 23, 1999, the device reached Mars. According to the plan at the time of arrival of the device was to enter the orbit of the planet, where the collection of data on the climate would begin. But 5 minutes after the attempt to put it into orbit, the signal with the orbiter was lost. From the subsequent analysis of the data, it became clear that the device passed over the surface of Mars at an altitude of 57 kilometers, about 35 miles, instead of the calculated 110 kilometers, about 68 miles. Amazed scientists long puzzled over how this could happen, but the solution was extremely simple. Lockheed Martin had used the British system of measurement to create the software, while NASA used the traditional metric system. The mismatch of units caused confusion in the operation of the vehicle, which only became apparent when communication with it was lost. As John Pike of the Federation of American Scientists later reported, it was embarrassing to lose a spacecraft for such a simple math error. But there's a silver lining. Thanks to the failed mission, NASA reconsidered all subsequent Mars-related projects and, in 2007, switched completely to the metric system when it comes to engineering calculations. The tiniest inattention to detail can turn out to be a total disaster. 6. In 2003, Spanish shipbuilding company Invention launched a program of S-80 submarines, which were not only to strengthen the country's fleet, but also to be supplied to India. The Spanish Navy ordered 4 such submarines from the company for a record sum of €2.5 billion. The first prototype was ready in 2013. The vessel was named after Isaac Peral, the Spanish officer who developed the first electric submarine in the late 19th century. But when it came to testing, it turned out that the boat was 75 tons heavier, about 165,347 pounds, than originally planned. Based on this, it might not have surfaced after the first dive. The reason for this was extremely prosaic. During the calculations, one of the engineers put the decimal point separating the integer and fractional part of the number in the wrong place. The mistake was noticed when the first submarine was ready, while the other 3 were still under construction. The misplaced decimal point cost the country several billion euros and a lot of wasted effort.